Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here. I'm Caroline, I'm from APRA AMCOS, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. I'm joining you today from Yagara and Turrbal land, and I'd like to acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people of the Meanjin Nation and pay my respects to elders, past and present. I'd also like to extend that acknowledgement to the traditional owners of the land from which you are all joining us today, and to any First Nations people who may be on the call, and to our Maori colleagues in Aotearoa. Today, we're thrilled to announce the results of the largest study of AI in music in our region. We'll be taking you through an overview of the results, followed by a short Q&A. You can submit questions in the Q&A on your screen, but we do ask that you hold off until the end of the presentation, as hopefully we will be answering a lot of those questions along the way. You can find the full report on the APRA AMCOS website, and we'll pop the links to those in the chat for the AU and the NZ website. So first up, I'd like to introduce who we have speaking with us today. We have Dean Ormston, CEO, APRA AMCOS, Professor Dr. Klaus Goldhammer from consulting and research firm Goldmedia, Leah Flanagan, Director of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office, NATSIMO, Anthony Healey, Head of New Zealand Operations, APRA AMCOS. We also have our Executive Director of Public Affairs and Government Relations, Nicholas Pickard. He's joining us off screen to help answer your questions today. Today's webinar is being recorded, and you will receive that link via email later today. So now we'd like to hear from APRA AMCOS CEO, Dean Ormston. So over to you, Dean.
Thanks, Caroline. Thanks everyone for joining us today for the launch of our report into AI in the music industry. I'm joining you today from APRA AMCOS's head office in Sydney on Gadigal land. I pay my respects to elders past and present and acknowledge any First Nations people on today's call. A special welcome to our whānau in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and all of our members wherever you are in the world. As Caroline said, this is the largest study and survey into AI in music in Australia and New Zealand to date. The report explores the relationship between music and artificial intelligence, highlighting the economic and cultural implications within this rapidly evolving market. We'll take you through the results of the survey, where an extraordinary 4,274 songwriters, composers and music publisher members from across Australia and New Zealand responded. It shows the enormous interest this issue is gaining, not just here, but with the global creative community. We commissioned Berlin-based consultation research group Goldmedia, whom you'll be hearing from shortly, to conduct this report. I'd like to welcome Klaus Goldhammer and the team from Goldmedia, who are also on the call, and apologies for the 3 a.m. time scale over there, time difference over there. Goldmedia are experts in this field and worked with our colleagues at SACEM in France and Gamer in Germany on a similar study in the lead up to the EU's vote on the AI Act. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander members through the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office and our Maori members in Aotearoa through our New Zealand office were also consulted and asked additional questions relating to the potential issues of cultural misappropriation from AI and the potential impact on Indigenous cultural intellectual property. I'd like to welcome Leah Flanagan, our Director of the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office, and Ant Healey, Head of New Zealand Operations for APRA AMCOS, who'll be taking us through the results of that qualitative and very important survey. Important question, so why did we commission this report? Well, it's very simple. We know that Australian and New Zealand artists are innovators, always ready to embrace new technology. We wanted to understand where this was happening and how AI was already being deployed in the industry. Over the past 2 years, we've also voiced our concerns about the lack of transparency in generative AI platforms. And it's our firm view that platforms must acknowledge the creative content they scrape and copy, which is essential for generating AI outputs. We are seeing the equivalent of a fast-tracked industrial revolution. Global forecasts relating to generative AI wealth generation by 2030 are astronomical. Yet to date, no major large language model, platform or generative AI service has asked for consent or paid for the data used to train platforms and drive generative AI outputs. Our members invest significant time and effort into their work, yet their intellectual property is being exploited by AI platforms without credit, consent, or compensation. We wanted to quantify and qualify the views of our members at the same time as providing crucial analysis and economic modelling to work out what the impact of AI will be on the industry if these platforms continue to evolve without any regulation or licence scheme in place. I'll now hand over to Klaus Goldhammer from Goldmedia, who'll take you through the key findings of the report. Thanks, Klaus.
Thank you, Dean, and welcome everybody. I'm very pleased to share with you the results of this first study on the impact of generative AI on songwriters, composers, and music publishers in Australia and New Zealand. Now, let's get started right away. First of all, it is important to note that in the field of AI in music, there are already a large number of software solutions for every step in the creative process available. From composition and songwriting to texting or editing and mixing. Actually, some companies in composition and songwriting, Suno and Udio, are currently being sued by major record labels for copyright infringements. And even for supporting aspects such as marketing and promotion of music, there is also a large selection of generative AI tools on the market. And as you probably know, the success of all generative AI models depends primarily on a large amount of input data that has been scraped for training purposes and, of course, a lot of compute to process this data. This means that all generative AI tools are only on the market because they were first trained with musical works that were created by people, and unfortunately, most of the time without their consent or any compensation. With this in mind, we asked a total of 4,274 APRA AMCOS members in Australia and New Zealand between May 31st and June the 20th what they think about generative AI in the music sector today. We also conducted a series of expert interviews with artists, academics, AI software providers, and other stakeholders in the music sector and made a forecast of the market size developments. The interesting thing here is creators are quite familiar with generative AI. Almost 40% of all the creators have already worked with software in this field. This shows, in my respect, that there is no fear of contact here, but rather that creators often use new technologies for their work and they know what AI is all about. We found that AI is used much more intensively in some genres and categories. For example, AI is used much more often for electronic and dance music, as well as hip hop and rap, than for more traditional styles like folk, country, or gospel. And generative AI is already being used frequently in some music categories, such as stock music, music for games, film, and advertising. So when you ask creators whether generative AI supports the creative process, 49% say that AI does so and that it can and will open up new forms of creativity. This shows the open attitude of songwriters, composers, and music publishers towards generative AI today, because more than 69%, more than 2/3 of all the respondents assume and accept that AI will be integrated into the entire music creative process, including the creation of lyrics and promotional content. And 65% at the same time fear that the dangers of generative AI currently outweighs the potential of opportunities. I will address these risks in a moment, but first I would like to briefly outline the market dimensions to better discuss the risks. First of all, the generative AI market is one of the fastest growing markets of all times. Last year, global revenues from generative AI were around 5.4 billion Australian dollars, mainly in the areas of text and image generation. So, for example, OpenAI, the inventor of ChatGPT and DALL-E 2 and 3, alone generated revenues of over $2 billion. The share of generative AI for the music sector is estimated at 8% or around $430 million. For the coming years, This AI music market volume is expected to grow by around 60% every year, so that by 2028, the global market for Gen AI in music alone will be worth $4.5 billion. We then looked at the market for music creators in Australia and New Zealand and assumed that there will be no regulation or remuneration system as of today. And then we examined every music category and every single tariff of APRA AMCOS to see in detail what influence generative AI will have over the next few years. Of course, the live music sector will be significantly less affected by Gen AI than, for example, stock music or advertising music. Now, by adding up all these areas of impact in every music sector and tariff, we came to the conclusion that in 2028, around a quarter or 23% of music creators' revenues in Australia and New Zealand will be at risk due to generative AI. That's around $227 million in 2028 alone, or more than $500 million for the entire period from 24 to 28. This means, although copyrighted works from songwriters, composers, and music publishers are used as training data for Gen AI models, and the market for Gen AI in the music sector continues to grow to $4.5 billion, there's currently no remuneration system to compensate creators who enable the AI tools in the first place with their works. They simply do not participate in the growth prospects of this AI market. It is therefore not surprising that 80% of music creators in Australia and New Zealand are seriously concerned that they will no longer be able to make a living from their music in the future due to Gen AI. Or as Burkhard Darwitz, and film and TV composer, puts it, AI will be used primarily by international content creators to reduce their costs and will ultimately lead to a lot of mediocre sounding music productions that would have actually required human composers. So the question is, what do songwriters, composers, and music publishers demand for their future? Well, there are basically 4 points that the vast majority of creators in Australia and New Zealand that we surveyed are demanding. They want attention, consent, credit and transparency, and remuneration if their works are used by Gen AI models. Let me go into that with a little more detail. 93% demand that copyright holders should be financially compensated when their works are used to train AI models, for example, through a licensing agreement. Even 95% demand that they want to be asked for permission before their copyrighted works are used as training data for AI systems. Even the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman admitted in an interview that this would bother him if he were a creator and was not asked for his consent. And however, because it is often not clear which works have been used for training purposes, 96% demand that AI providers should be required to disclose when they use copyrighted works to train their AI models. So it's always about credit and transparency. And last but not least, 97% of the creators in Australia and New Zealand demand that policymakers should therefore pay more attention to the challenges of AI and copyright, because almost a quarter of their income is at risk over the next 4 years. Let me close with 2 quotes. The first, rather positive one, comes from Kingdon Chaddle-Wilson from New Zealand. And on the one hand, he perceives AI as a natural development of technology, but nevertheless, he sees the challenges of how creators can benefit from AI and not run the risk of becoming insignificant. On the other hand, musician and screen composer Caitlin Yiu is much more critical. She clearly speaks against the violations of her copyrights by AI companies and the lack of permission, attribution, and remuneration. This is from my side. A full version can be downloaded from the APRA AMCOS websites. Thank you for your attention. Now I'll hand over to the next speaker, Leah Flanagan from the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders Music Office. Leah?
Need to unmute. Hi, everyone. As the director of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office, otherwise known as NATSMO, I'm presenting this survey of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander music creators. I want to say a big thank you to the members who shared their thoughts, concerns, and insights. The NATSMO is deeply committed to fostering self-determination for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander musicians, aiming to nurture a vibrant, self-determined Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander music industry. The rise of AI technology poses significant threats to the cultural and economic well-being of all Indigenous communities and AI's potential effect on Indigenous cultural intellectual properties, otherwise known as ICIP. There are critical unaddressed issues regarding AI's impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural creators in Australia, and the responses help make that very clear and provide additional context to a very big topic. This conversation is fast-moving, especially as the technology evolves and governments around the world race to investigate AI regulation. The urgency of an initial Indigenous perspective to place in front of government has been paramount. Whilst this survey is the most comprehensive work completed to interview Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander music creators and their opinions on AI to date, a short survey model is not our desired consultation method, nor one that we would promote to others normally. Had this issue not been so pressing, we would spend significantly more time consulting with groups and individuals over a longer period to ensure we had a balance of perspectives from all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander demographical groups from urban, regional and remote areas. Digital literacy is still developing in our remote communities, and access to the internet greatly impacts our people from participating in these conversations. As AI is an online tool, many of our people are not online, nor do they have access to the technology. The National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office will continue to consult with all of our demographical groups as this policy area evolves. So here is what our members told us. The first question was, will AI create more opportunities for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander musicians? There was a diverse range of opinions. Respondents expressed concerns that AI could take opportunities away from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, leading to cultural appropriation and decontextualised data. However, some believe that AI could create opportunities in the music industry by automating tasks, enhancing creativity, and providing access to production tools. The second question was on the impact of cultural rights through the use of AI. Our respondents largely agree that AI complicates the protection of cultural rights for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists. This lack of control over cultural information is seen as deeply disrespectful. The absence of safeguards could lead to violations of cultural protocols and financial losses for knowledge custodians. The third question was about cultural appropriation through the use of AI. Our respondents largely believe that AI leads to cultural appropriation and the misuse of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural properties. Misuse is a major concern. With AI misuse already occurring, they suggested that artists learn how to use AI to gain control and called for standards and regulations to limit misuse and appropriation. The fourth question was on AI copyright violations. Our respondents emphasised the critical need for guardians or owners of ICIP, Indigenous cultural intellectual properties, to manage AI copyright violations, stating that control is essential for communities to protect their identity. With a call for protection measures led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The fifth question was, can the use of AI lead to ill-informed decisions by our communities? Our respondents believe that AI can significantly impact the ability of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to manage and protect their cultural content, and they express their concerns for their communities in the bush who have limited access to technology and the internet, which could hinder these communities' decision-making abilities. I'd like to cite a quote from one of our members, Gloves, who is concerned about how individuals and commercial entities could use AI to undermine and capitalise on First Nations culture. Due to the unique nature and cultural significance of our Indigenous cultural intellectual property, AI's effects on this vulnerable sector are absolutely profound. There are critical unaddressed issues regarding AI's impact on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultural creators in Australia. Government focus has addressed unauthorised use of ICIP in arts and crafts, particularly in mass-produced items, but Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander music creators often engage in multiple art forms. So it is crucial for policymakers in partnership with organisations like the National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Music Office and our musical creators, our members, to ensure that there is a comprehensive protection framework to support our diverse and interconnected creative expressions in the face of this significant technological change. It is also very important. Thank you. I'd like to hand it over to our next speaker, Aunt Healey in Aotearoa.
Ngā mihi, Leah, ngā mihi ki koutou. No mai haere mai ki Tamaki Makaurau here in Auckland. My name is Aunt Healey. I'm the head of New Zealand operations. And can I begin by just sending an apology for my colleague Dame Hinuehi Mohi, our director of Māori music here in New Zealand. I can't speak for Māori in the music industry, but I do hope, given the consultation that Hinuehi and the team have done, that I can speak to some of the outcomes of that discussion with them. Over the last 5 years, Hinuehi and the team here have led some transformative work amongst our Māori members to support the development of Waiata Reo Māori and the development of a bilingual music industry here in Aotearoa, New Zealand. This has seen a massive resurgence of Waiata Reo Māori songs on all platforms, and I think it makes us well placed to do research of this nature. Like others in the music industry, Māori have been quick to take up technology, and AI technology is no different. There was an acknowledgement in the survey of the inevitability of this technology and that we needed to understand all the opportunities and the risks. One member commented, in a business sense, AI might have the capacity to streamline work processes. It's a positive. However, from an artistic and cultural perspective, they were concerned about the protection of cultural materials and IP, which has been under threat already without these technologies. So the concerns from our Māori members around the risks are very real. Many of the concerns relate to the likelihood of misuse and appropriation of unique sounds that are unique to Aotearoa. Tangopuro, which are traditional Māori musical instruments, are used for both spiritual and musical purposes, and as such must be treated with great respect. Obviously, the risk of misappropriation of such sounds is massive, especially when the data models for traditional music are relatively limited. Another member has commented, AI models are trained from easily available information, and the information that is most available to train from has been historically narrow-minded towards Māori and conditional on external political motivations. So again, the complex nature of these issues for tangata whenua here in Aotearoa is very important. There was some uncertainty around the benefits of AI for Māori. 81% of those surveyed either not knowing or disagreeing that AI will deliver opportunities. Most believe that AI will make it more difficult, 84%. Most believe will make it more difficult to protect cultural rights. A vast majority believe that AI technology will lead to cultural appropriation and misuse. Here in New Zealand, the whakapapa, or the genealogy of sounds and waiata. Where those songs and waiata come from is really important. One member commented, "We are already hearing our instruments in AI music, but what is the whakapapa of those sounds? We don't know what data has been used to create them. If we could control the whakapapa, it may be different, but if we can't, we and the people who are using AI outside our community are making uninformed decisions that are culturally and spiritually unsafe." We're also seeing a lot of Pacifica soup or even indigenous soup, where AI creates sounds with a wider pool of data using other related idioms or music traditions to find those sounds. But who gave the permission for the creation of this whakapapa? To create whakapapa, consent is crucial. So that's what they're asking for. A majority of Māori members believe that to protect authenticity and prevent cultural misappropriation, these basic principles of consent, credit, and ultimately compensation must be adopted. So that's some of the feedback from our Māori members. And now I'm going to throw back to Dean and we'll get through to some Q&A.
Look, thanks Klaus and Leah and Ant for taking us through the highlights of the report. There's obviously a lot more to the report than what we've spoken about today, and you'll see the full 150-page report is available on the APRA AMCOS website, where you can see all of the findings. We'll now be sending this report to key government ministers and department officials, and we'll be discussing with them the need for Australia and New Zealand to implement EU-style transparency guidelines on tech companies to disclose the content that has been copied and used without permission to build AI platforms. We'll be calling for sanctions on those platforms for non-disclosure based around the principle that the creators whose work is relied on by these platforms deserve consent, credit, and fair remuneration. Now, without this, potentially our industry is facing a very bleak future. As you can see from the statistics Klaus spoke to, there is a real material impact if we're not able to license the use of AI. We'll also continue working with our counterparts and peers around the world to ensure there is a united creative industry network to advocate to national governments and international bodies like UNESCO and WIPO. Before we throw to questions, I do want to acknowledge the industry experts who provided so much intelligence and understanding on the AI market. And they include Associate Professor Oliver Brown from the University of New South Wales, Dr. Sam Whiting from RMIT, Sophie Burberry from the University of Auckland, Tracy Chan from Splash, Sally Coleman from Big Sand, and songwriter and producer Tushar Apt, who's based in Los Angeles. So, Carolyn, through you, I think now to questions.
Thank you, Dean. Yes, through to some questions. Now, obviously, we have a lot of questions coming through from members. Just to make you all aware, obviously, that this is just the beginning of a continuing conversation. So this is a very high-level look at what members are concerned about and how we can use that in our conversations with government. So it's great to see a lot of questions coming through from our members, and unfortunately we won't be able to get to all of them, obviously. We will get to some of them, but we would like to point you to the FAQs section on the website, which we will be continuing to add to. And the questions that you're asking today are really helping to inform us about what we need to put in there to really help you answer those questions. But first of all, I do have a question that I'd like to throw to you, Dean. Can you paint a picture of what the government landscape looks like, and what are your plans for engaging?
Yeah, thanks, Carolyn. Look, the Australian government, many on this call will know this, the Australian government established a copyright and advice and AI reference group, affectionately known as CARE. We sit on that group alongside creator sector organisations, including Copyright Agency, the Australian Society of Authors, and ARIA. Separately, Industry Minister Ed Hughesich is also working with industries around establishing mandatory guardrails for the use of AI in what they are calling high-risk settings. So that relates to the potential harmful uses of AI. I guess the point to make here is that we're a long way behind the European Union, which mandates transparency of data sets used, regardless of which country it was built in. There's also sanctions for non-compliance. So we're working very closely with our colleagues across the entire creative industries around a clear and united approach to government. Obviously, the AI solution is still playing out, and we have our own unique challenges in Australia and New Zealand. That's before you even start talking about the potential impact of AI on First Nations artists, as Leah spoke to a little while ago. Yeah, so there's a lot happening, Carolyn, and at this point, we're taking a very broad view and making sure that government is very aware of the position of the creative industries and, in this case, music within that context.
Thanks, Dean. Ant, would you like to talk about what's happening in New Zealand?
Oh, look, I think in New Zealand, the government is taking an even more wait-and-see approach than our counterparts in Australia when it comes to AI regulation. It is difficult, being a small jurisdiction, to impact what is essentially a massive global technological change. But despite that, we will keep working through the New Zealand AI Forum and through other bodies here to ensure that the government does take a creator-centric approach to any legislation that is coming into the future. I mean, at the moment, their position is our current legislation, our current frameworks, whether it's copyright or other legal frameworks, are sufficient to protect us. But I think, in light of some of this research, they might have to think again.
Thanks, Ant. Another question that I might throw to you, Dean. It feels like the AI horse has already bolted. How can we get government to act faster?
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Look, and I think this question's already come up today in media. So people are recognising the fact that things are moving fast. One of the things that we have said to everybody that will listen is that this could very well be like the Industrial Revolution, but in a very contracted space. It could all happen, very quickly. So it's an imperative for us, I think, to work collectively together across the cultural and creative sector, so literature, visual arts, design, news, media, to really make it clear to governments, both here and internationally, that when you stack up the cultural industries, we are as big as these multinational tech platforms. Some jurisdictions, as I mentioned before, the EU, are moving faster than others. You'll see from the report the state of play in various territories around the world. China is moving fast to implement regulations. Brazil is developing an AI Act, and in the US Congress, there is debate happening on generative AI through the AI Copyright Disclosure Act. It's important to note that there's litigation occurring around the world. Part of our message to government is we shouldn't be sitting on our hands waiting for the outcomes of litigation. Specifically, record labels are taking action in US courts. Book publishers are in court, class actions by photographers and artists. So there's a lot happening in that space. But again, just to reiterate, the very simple statement expectation that we're putting to government is that if you're going to use copyright work, you need to get consent, credit, and fair remuneration for that use. One of the things everybody on this call can do, and through our collective channels, is write to local MPs. It's important that we take a very much a grassroots approach to this, that people express their concern about their own intellectual property and their livelihood, and make that comment direct to your local MP.
Thanks, Dean. The next question probably best answered by Klaus from Goldmedia. How did you come to that dollar amount of damage?
Well, as I said, the 23%, we looked at the revenue lines for licenses from retail, background music, streaming, digital advertising, and screen. And we then projected what the loss would look like. Live music, as I said, is largely protected, but the AI impact would be around the visibility of artists who are being cut out even further by AI content. And it is a very detailed look at the development for each area for license payments. We also double-checked the impact on these music areas with expert interviews and from our experience in other markets to make sure we have a robust projection with and without AI. So we made sure to have a safe and conservative forecast here.
And Klaus, just to follow up, do the results of the APRA survey largely mirror those of the European survey?
Yes, as you said, we have conducted a similar study in France and in Germany, and the findings were very, very similar. The fears obviously are everywhere the same. And another study for Great Britain came up with comparable demands from creators. It is always consent, credit, remuneration, and the fear not being able to make a living from their music in the future. This is obviously everywhere the same.
Thank you. Here's a good one. Should I acknowledge or somehow inform APRA AMCOS if I am using AI in my songwriting? A great question. We do have it as an FAQ on the AI report page. But Dean, perhaps if you could fill us in.
Well, I hope I'm saying something consistent with what's on our FAQ page, but it's important for everyone to remember that for copyright to exist in a work, it needs to be an original work created by a human. So that's a critical point. If you're an APRA member, you warrant to APRA when you register your works that this is your work. You've been involved in creating that work. And as the feedback we saw through the survey, that wasn't very professional. My phone got off in the background. As we saw in the study, many people are already using AI as a tool. We're all going to be using AI in some shape or form as a tool. So, you know, as long as it is your work, you're using AI purely as a tool, then you may still register that work with us as you normally do, listing yourself as the composer and the lyricist.
Great, thank you, Dean. I think that's probably all we have time for. And thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. As we said, the recording of this session will be made available. We'll be sending that out to you later today. You can find the full report results, including those FAQs, on our website, the AU and the NZ website, which we have put into the chat for you all. Please do, though, send further questions. So I'll put up on the screen for you here some email addresses that you can contact us at. So we've got the AU email address and the NZ email address. We really appreciate you all taking the time for coming out today. Thank you for all of the wonderful speakers. And I'd just like to say, as Dean said, please do contact your local MP, tell them about this report and why it matters.